Hey, you, come, gather around the campfire, and welcome to the party. This is Party Chat, a JRPG podcast where we talk about everything we love in the world of JRPGs and other Eastern titles. I'm your host, Cameron Hawkins. Along, as always, is my party partner, Kevin Kenson. Kevin, how you doing?
I am doing good today, outside of the fact that I found out today I'm spending a lot more money than I want to on some really cool stuff that we're going to be talking about in the news today. But it is, I think we were joking earlier on the server about something else where I said, heart full, wallet empty. That's how I'm feeling right now.
Yeah, what a terrible time for me to be unemployed. We'll talk about it later, but what a terrible time for me to
Terrible
be
night for a
unemployed.
curse.
But it's not all bad, Kevin, because as you can see, literally for the video or audio listeners who aren't seeing what's happening right now, I have recently, as of today, become a gun owner. And I have, and when I mean a gun, I mean I have an Evoker Shadow Box. This came in the I don't know, the ultimate, the Seas edition, I think is
Yeah.
what it's called. The Seas edition of Persona 3 Portable that limited run did like almost 2 years ago.
Yeah, I look.
Uh,
I don't want to throw like shade at limited run, but I do remember when pre-orders for that went up and people were like, "Oh, are you gonna grab it?" I was like, "I don't know, man. Like by the time this thing ships, we'll already have Reload out and all of its DLC." And I was joking, and then that is literally what happened. Like,
but like when they showed and admittedly, I bought the pre-order for both of them. This collector's edition way better than the Reload collector's edition.
oh yeah, no, the Reload
Like,
one is not great.
and Atlas normally kills it with their collector's editions. Like the Metaphor one is really good,
Yeah. No, I think
but
a lot of times they have either like really they either have like good quality stuff for the dollar or they come with like unique things. Like the what was it? Unicorn Overlord came with like a board game. Like a
yeah,
trading card like not a trading card game, but like a deck builder that was themed after it. It's like a solid deck builder. I played with friends one time and like it worked. Like that's a cool specific thing you don't normally see in collector's editions. And then 3 Reload was like, here's an Igus statue for way more money than that size would make you think.
yeah. Like normally the price for like Atlas is makes collector's editions that are not super expensive but are good. Um, and yeah, Reload I think is the first miss in a while because I mean, and this isn't like this was limited run like thought of all this and all that jazz. So the Seas edition and like the Persona 4 Golden one, which hasn't come in yet, that I also pre-ordered, those I'm not considering, but like Catherine Full Body had a great collector's edition, steelbook, the little sheep
Yep.
plushie, like really great.
I think we talked
Uh
about on stream the Yakuza like Steelbook collection or whatever they've been rolling out, and or not Steelbook, but like the nice all
yeah,
the
yeah.
those
Mm-hmm.
collectors where it fits in like a box and does the tattoo, and it's like that's a lot of money for like 7 games that I already
It's really
own.
cool though.
But
It's
also
really
it's
cool
cool.
though. It's really cool.
I resisted, but
Um
I was legit like if I didn't have those physically already, I probably would have bit. But it's like I
yeah.
already spent money on all these physically. I don't need that.
I No, I get that because I think I told you this already off the podcast, but I bought all of the physical versions of Yakuza to do a series playthrough, which I have since done. But right after I finally got Yakuza Zero was the last one I needed because all you could get was like the PlayStation Hits version, and I'm like, nah, I need the OG print. Like I can't have this red on my
Sure.
art cover.
The Grayson's
And
dilemma.
it may be like less than a month after finally getting the first print of it comes to Game Pass.
That's right.
I'm
I
just
forgot the
like
story.
I was
Like
just
I mean, but
like,
there is a difference with like having the
oh
physicals and like being able to play through Game Pass is very accessible, but like especially I know you're physically minded in general. So like
yeah. But that's the thing that's cool about this limited run print is that this is the only way you can get the Xbox version, and I
I didn't even think
prefer
about
to
that.
play. yeah, I prefer to play them on Xbox. So that's why I was like really happy about that. Um, and so and the pre-orders are almost done. There's only one left. Like we're just waiting for 6 and then it's
Yeah.
done. So but yeah, like limited run I think is a topic in and of itself that we can talk about for a topic of the show because I know
Sure.
that it's a pretty heated conversation in
Yeah.
the
And not just
not just the
specifically,
gaming
like,
space but the JRPG space. So
yeah, and there's a couple companies. There's certainly the biggest name in it, but there's a few companies that do like physical print runs for things, and
yeah,
uh, that whole subject I think is definitely worth exploring. Certainly.
definitely.
So on the subject of us spending money, should we talk
Mm,
about the our top story for this week?
yes, our top
Or
story.
wait, no, let's not make our same mistake as last time. Bookkeeping. Well, Cliff
Yes,
knows it, but let's do
before
bookkeeping. Yeah.
before we get to the top the news story, the main news story for this week, we got some housekeeping. First and foremost, if you've been enjoying the show and you'd like to support us, give this podcast a quick pause, give us a 5-star review on your podcasting platform of choice. Go to youtube.com. Go to our YouTube channel. It's just in our name, Party Chat, a JRPG podcast. Give us a subscribe. All of that stuff really helps with exposure and getting our name out there. And if you really, really want to support us even more, you can go on Patreon. We have a bunch of different tiers that give you the episode a day early, a Q&A every month where you can ask us any questions that we give directly to our patrons on Patreon, and Campfire Catalog, which is our book club podcast. And the first game is going to be on Chrono Trigger, and that episode is going to come out probably within the next month or so. So we're getting there. We've started playing through it. We haven't really talked in depth about it, outside of like some small things in our Discord. But yeah, that's going to be really fun. We're going to get some guests on that are knowledgeable about Chrono Trigger, have a long history with the game, and hopefully it'll be very informative, educational, and just a fun time. So, and then lastly, go to youtube.com/Kevin Kenson and give Kevin a subscribe over there as we're trying to get him to 1 million subscribers before the end of this year. Kevin,
It'd be pretty neat.
it would be pretty neat. It'd be pretty neat. But Kevin, we have to talk about Final Fantasy and Magic the Gathering.
Oh, it's so good and so bad at the same time for me. I like we knew this was coming. Like we knew this was happening this summer. But
so before we get into it,
yeah.
tell me your history with Magic the Gathering, because I play Magic every week. I literally played Magic the past 2 nights. Like this house is full of Magic players, and you know, I wouldn't say I'm an expert in the game, but I definitely am knowledgeable,
Sure.
and I want to I'm really excited about this set, and I just wanted to kind of gauge your history with it.
Yeah, so I played like really my main time and era of playing Magic was like my middle through high school years. Like I was playing back when Invasion and Planeshift were stuff. Like I was into Magic before Planeswalkers were cards. That was when I really played
Wow.
the
Okay.
game like a lot. And
Okay.
then after that, like there were kind of random, like, you know, every 3-4 years it'd be like, I want to play some Magic. And so I would just pick up like a random precon, maybe a couple boosters, slap something together and play with friends. And really the last year, I started getting back into it. In order to just play with specific friends, and like I normally don't have like the patience right now to be like, oh, I'm gonna buy boosters and open that. Like I don't have the brain for it. But I absolutely will pick up like a pre-constructed commander deck and play with friends. And so that's actually the last couple ones I picked up were like I got a commander deck from the Lord of the Rings set, from the Fallout set.
Yeah.
The crossovers are definitely like that extra push for me. And this is a big one. Like I already today I added one of the main people I play with, and I was like, hey, like we need to start getting regular commander games going again because I have to justify the very unhealthy amount of money I'm about to drop on this. Like there's definitely a part of me that just wants to have the things because they're cool things. Like I loved Magic growing up and I love Final Fantasy, so this is like a crossover, which is so funny because there's a Final Fantasy trading card game. Like that already exists. Don't play it at all. But
Yeah, no,
you put it on
absolutely
Magic,
not.
and I'm like, oh wait, what?
100%. I think we've obviously seen like a resurgence, especially during the pandemic and over the past like 5 years
Yeah.
of the Pokemon TCG.
Really,
But
lots of traditional games in general. Like, yeah, Magic,
yes,
Pokemon TCG, tabletop games. Like, people needed
yes,
things to do that weren't out.
but Magic to me is the quintessential TCG. Like it is the trading card game,
Yeah,
and I think it shows just with the amount of crossovers it's been doing with the secret layers, um, and all these collaborations, both in and outside of like general gaming. Like, there's going to be a SpongeBob SquarePants secret layer
yep.
later this
We've
year.
had a few Migu ones. Like,
The Marvel secret layer. Like,
yeah,
I have a
which
Captain America deck.
there's two separate Marvels, right? They're doing Spider-Man and they're doing just like Marvel Avengers. Is that what it
So
is?
Spider-Man is going to be a base set, kind of like Final Fantasy, while the Marvel cards we've already gotten were secret layers.
Got it. Got it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's
And
interesting how
so
they pick and choose what goes to what. Because I know like Street Fighter was an early on secret layer where there was just cards for each of the fighters from
yeah,
Street
that was
Fighter
like one of
2.
the first secret layers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was super early on. I think Warhammer did a collaboration where it was just Commander decks and that was it. Warhammer 40k
Yeah,
specifically.
Warhammer
Um,
40K did a set,
and
Assassin's
then
Creed,
yeah, Assassin's Creed. Assassin's Creed was the start. I don't think
All
that had
Out.
Commander decks, but that had like a starter kit and a booster set. I think. Right.
Yeah, it had like booster packs and everything like that, but it didn't have a commander deck.
Yeah, and then Final Fantasy is like everything. They're
Everything. Yeah,
doing
it's gonna be
boosters. They're
everything.
doing it's dangerous. On that note, let's talk about our commander selection here because I think it's a little interesting.
Yeah,
I mostly agree with it.
yeah. So for those that don't know, like let's inform some people that don't know Magic a bit, because I think that a lot of people that love Final Fantasy are curious about this Final Fantasy
Sure.
collaboration with Magic. So Commander is a game type. It's like the most popular game type in Magic, and it's basically where you build a 100 card deck, where you can only have one copy of any card,
Yep.
unless the card specifies, which is very rare. And your Commander is like the main card that synergizes around the deck synergizes around. And on top of that, the commander, depending on what of the 5 colors are on the commander card, those are the only colors you can play in that deck. So, for example, we're gonna get to it. Cloud, right? So Cloud X Soldier is one of the commanders, and his cost is 2 colorless, red, green, white. So if you were to make a commander deck around Cloud X Soldier, you can only use red, green, and white cards. You can't use black, you can't use blue. And so that's kind of like how Commander works. And it's a 4-player game. Ideally, you can play 3, but 4 is like the ideal amount. And it's super duper fun. It's super duper fun, y'all. I think it's like pretty easy to get into. Like, yes, there's like most games, there are going to be like these keywords that you have to figure out and understand. But once you figure it out and you learn like the rules, it's a pretty approachable game, and it can get addicting really fast.
Yeah, and the important thing too with the keywords is that if you're playing with like a specific group of people too, like you only need to worry about the keywords that are relevant to those decks. Like there are certain ones that come up very often, like trample, lifelink, haste, first strike, whatever. But there's like a couple that are a little more weird or esoteric, but you only have to worry about that if someone's deck is using it. So
and in most cases,
too much.
And in most cases, if it's like a more uncommon keyword, the card will tell you what that means on the card, so you don't have to really worry about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say. So these commander decks, it's 4 different decks they're coming out with. Each of them are pre-constructed, and they're their own like specific list of cards. Like they even have a different symbol denoting that they're a part of these commander sets.
Correct. Yeah. So we already went over Cloud X Soldier. The next one is Terra, Herald of Hope, which is we're not going to go super deep into what the cards do or anything. We're going to more talk about like the choices and the selections, because we don't want to assume that everyone that's listening to this knows Magic, and like we don't want to just like say a bunch of things that you just don't understand. But we wanted to give you a little bit of a like, hey, this is what this is for in the context of the game.
Yeah, we don't need to get into minutia right now.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, we have Terra.
Terra, and then we have Titus. I don't like Titus as Titus. Titus, Yuna's Guardian. And then we have Ishtola, Knights Blessed. So we have reps from 7, 6, 10, and 14, which I think if I'm being objective, I think those are the right picks to make. I think that like you have 6 as like that classical era and like also arguably the best Final Fantasy, and then you have 7, which is like obviously the
big
groundbreaking entry. And then 10 is highly beloved, like a lot, most people, especially around our age, most people you ask like, oh, what's your favorite Final Fantasy? It's either going to be 7 or 10.
Yeah, those ones come up very often for sure.
And then there's the 14 sickos.
There's no way they couldn't do 14. Crowd. Like that just has to happen.
Yeah.
There's no way.
It's just too popular. It's too popular and it's too beloved. It just makes sense.
Yeah, I feel like that's going to be the commander deck that's out. Like usually there's like one commander deck that disappears a little faster than the others, and I feel like that's going to be the one, because that's its own. That's almost a separate audience. Like there are people who are into both, but there are people who are just really into 14 specifically, and yeah, that's going to disappear. I will say, I agree that I think these are the 4. I am a little surprised that. Okay. I think 6, 7, and 14 were all pretty safe. 10 is the only one that surprises me like a little bit.
Really? Okay.
Because I do like 10. I would have thought... I feel like 9 comes up in as many conversations as 10 does for like best in series. Mm-hmm. Also like Vivi.
Oh, 9 and 10. Oh, yeah. Buddy, I'm gonna hold your hand when I tell you this. I think you're wrong there. No, I think that there is a subsect of Final Fantasy fans that ride or die Final Fantasy 9.
Yeah, like me.
But yes, but I don't think
exist. There are dozens of us.
Yes, no. You don't have to tell me about like liking one of the not most popular mainstream titles. Like I get that, but I'm just saying that 9. I don't think anyone would really say that unless their favorite Final Fantasy is 9.
I don't agree with you on that. I agree it's not as high as like 7 or 6, like absolutely, but I don't think 10 is a massively beloved game compared to 9. Like
I think that's crazy. I
don't think those numbers are as different as you think. Like I agree that 10 could maybe be more, but I don't think it's like a massive disparity.
I think we're gonna have to agree to disagree on that, dog. Because
I will say,
and I can't really speak. I can't really speak on it because I haven't played 9 yet.
Yeah.
So, but like, I just know that from you and some other friends, some local friends, they're like, "Oh, 9 is the best Final Fantasy. It is like without a doubt 9," and they have the passion. It's kind of like when we talked about in the past with like Dragon Quest, where like these Dragon Quest 4 subsect of people are like, yo, Dragon Quest 4 has the sauce.
Yeah.
But then like I played it and I'm like, I respect what it's doing, but it didn't work for me.
Sure.
And so it's just one of those things where I don't know, I can't really say, but just from ongoing discussions and things like that, I only really hear people mention 9 if it is their favorite.
Right.
So I'm not trying to poop on your game.
No, for sure. And I agree with you. I'm just saying I'm not sure if like the 10 audience is like that much massively larger is where the only part that I'm drawing the line.
Maybe there is a split, like there was a year between our ages where that changed, because like for me it was always 7 and 10 until I got older and I met other people that like were a little bit older than me. And then, like, they said, like, oh, Final Fantasy 6 is, like, the greatest. And I'm like, oh, shit, this is the first time hearing of this. And then, like, and then 9 as well.
Yeah.
And it's not because like I don't think 9 isn't good. It's just because 7 was just so groundbreaking
Yeah.
that it just kind of overshadowed.
Right.
I
Well, I
think I
agree
think
there.
9.
I was gonna say I think there
Go
was
ahead.
also like a culture shift that happened because I also agree where like a long time I feel like 7 and 10 were like the big benchmarks for a lot of people because those were like the big budget releases of the respective systems. Like 7 was
Okay.
the breakout for the PS1, 10 was for the PS2, and then as I got older, I feel like there was this later resurgence of people going back and playing, being like, oh wait, no, never mind, it's 6 and 9. Like those are the two that are like the peaks.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. I've not heard that about 9, but I know that the people that love 9, like yourself, are super passionate and
Yeah.
like, and I totally respect that. And I'm hoping that I can get to 9 somewhat soon.
Yeah.
I'm on Final Fantasy 3. It's been a month and a half, and I'm already on Final Fantasy 3.
You're
I
also
think I should be able.
playing how many current games and trying to catch up on Dragon Quest as well.
Listen,
Just a small
listen.
list of things to play this year.
I mean, granted, I'm unemployed right now, so I've had time to play more games. But like, I think I've did some pretty hardcore gaming hours the
Yeah.
past like month and
No,
a
you're
half.
doing good. You're doing good pacing. That's what I'm saying. Like you're tearing through a lot of stuff. Anyways, though,
But
to get back to my
yeah.
original point, yeah, like I feel like the like of the four, 10 is the one that's like the slightly most nebulous. Like I feel
Mm,
like 7, 6, and 14 are like the lock-ins. Um, I'm also a little
mm.
surprised just because of recency that like 16 wasn't like the fourth one. Like I agree with them picking 10, but I would have like if you were to ask me to guess what the four would be, I would have put 16 as one of them just because of like, oh, that's like the current one.
I think that's a big risk. I
Yeah,
think it's like one of those things where, what if 16 came out, and in general 16 came out, and I think the game is like relatively well received,
hmm,
but there's some people that like weren't super hot on it, and like I think that Clive is like the best part of that game, as like when it comes to like the characters in the world and stuff. But I just like I could totally see them doing Clive, and it's just like too recent, or it's not, or the game didn't get received the way that they wanted it to, and then
sure.
like it just kind of flops like that. But I'm sure there's going to be another Final Fantasy set in the future. Like
Oh,
if this
probably.
pops off the way it does,
Yeah,
it's
especially
totally happening.
because there's so much more they can pull from, right? Because I was actually double checking this before we hopped on. So this set is specifically just covering mainline games 1 through
Yes.
16. There's, as far as we know, there's no 10-2, there's no like 13-2, there's no tactics. There are lots of other Final Fantasy games that they could pull from that have their fan bases that are just not represented right now. Not to mention, like, nothing stops them from imprinting cards, right? Like, we already know we're getting 2 different clouds, if not more, in this set. So, like,
We got 2 different clouds already. I would not be surprised if we got 2 of some other protagonists as
for
well.
sure.
Um, but yeah, so those are the 4 commanders, and then they've shown some other cards that are pretty cool. And you guys can look all of this up on the Magic the Gathering uh website. It's like literally like the front facing thing more or less, so you can check it out. But I want to mention some of the other cards and references. So there's a Final Fantasy 15 card that is called Side Quest Catch a Fish, and it's just like Noctis fishing,
Fishing.
which, man, the fishing minigame in 15 is so good. I think it might be the best like fishing minigame in a JRPG that I've played. Did you like the fishing in 15?
I thought it was solid. I don't know if I have like hard opinions about fishing minigames in Final Fantasy. I will say, and this will come up. I was gonna save this for our what we've been playing, but I have been playing Rebirth again, and for how many minigames that game has, I'm very surprised fishing is not one of them. I've done like
Yeah.
every other minigame under the sun in that game, and yet fishing is like one of the most occurring things across JRPGs, and it's not in Seven Rebirth. I found that funny.
Yeah, that's actually a very fair thing to mention. We also got Stiltskin, Moogle Merchant from
Yeah.
Final Fantasy 9, correct?
Yep, I believe so. I'm
Yeah,
remembering
that's
right.
cool. They showed off one of the summons, Shiva, which is cool. Which again, not going to get into the nitty gritty, but they kind of like they're doing something brand new with like magic with these summons, where like there are these card types called sagas, and then there's but they're also but they've never been like a creature before, and so like Shiva's like a saga creature, which is really cool.
Yeah.
That's like the first time they're doing something like this with those card types. So that's exciting. We got Cecil Dark Knight, and then which flips into Cecil Redeemed Paladin, which is really
So
cool. I think a lot of people has spoken highly about this card specifically.
the theming for some of these cards is really nice. Like I think Cecil's one of my favorites. I also really like the theming for Tonberry. Uh,
Yeah,
and I don't want to break your order up too much here, but I need to jump to I think the most ridiculous card in this set that we've revealed so
sure,
far.
sure.
Jumbo Cactar.
Yeah,
Absolutely ridiculous. Like there's
hmm.
already like I'm like there's no way this card's going to be allowed like eventually.
That's what I
Like
told my
it's
roommates,
so
and they
silly.
think it's fine. I'm like,
The
what do you
moment you give this
mean?
the moment you have an option to give this thing haste and trample, it's over.
Yeah,
Not getting too in depth, but I think the basic concept here should be most people will follow. So Jumbo Cactar is a card that normally has 1 power and 7 defense. When it attacks, specifically when it attacks, it gets plus 9,999 damage.
yeah.
Maximum rolls is normally 20 to 40.
And Magic is a low numbers game. It's not a high numbers game. So that is absolutely absurd.
It's
Um,
hilarious.
and the way that you can just abuse that to like sack it and instead get like 10,000 1/1 token creatures, like it's so stupid. Anyway, we got Zaz's Chocobo, which I kind of wish it was a legendary creature, but that's neither here nor there right now. But it's a little cutie. We had a
You don't
little
know how many
cutie
he's
right
gone
there.
through. Maybe it was all the
Um,
same one. It's like dogs in
we
those old movies from the 90s.
we got Emmett Selch Unsundered, which I know that the 14 community is super happy about this card.
Happy's a word for it.
Apparently, I've only played the base game, but apparently people really like Emmett Selch, so good on y'all. We got Garland, Knight of Cornelia, Chaos. He flips into Chaos, the Endless, which is funny. We got Sin, Spyra's Punishment from Final Fantasy X, which is cool. And then we got another Cloud Planets Champion. We got Sephiroth, Planet's Heir,
Yeah,
which are like the 2 cards for the starter kit.
Yeah. Which the starter kit is honestly like such a great deal, relatively, like with how expensive everything else is. Like if you just want to check Magic out, because like these commander decks are like $70 a pop, and part of that is because they're bigger decks, so like 100. The starter kit's like $20 and you get 2 60-card decks to play like the standard format. Which again, Commander is like the very popular multiplayer one to do. But if you just want to learn some Magic and you want some Final Fantasy cards, the starter kit's a pretty good deal.
Yeah. And then also it's worth noting that Yoshitaka Amano did the art for Dragon of Mount Gulg?
Gulag, I think.
Golug? And that's it is a
Gold
version of a different card that already exists in Magic, but the art is done by Amano, which is super cool.
Yeah.
We don't know for certain if there's going to be more from him specifically, but that's very cool. Also, the food token being the food from Final Fantasy 15 is chef's kiss.
I actually
chef's
missed that.
kiss.
Where did you see that? I totally missed that.
It's on the website.
Oh wait, I see. If you scroll all the way down to
it looks like the food from Final Fantasy 15, and it's so good.
No, I'm excited for like little references like that are honestly some of my more favorite things. I'm really excited to see what the lands in this game are going to be like what shots they're going to use to represent island or mountain.
I haven't even thought of that yet, dude. It's gonna be so good. But yeah, those are all the cards that they have released so far. We've talked about them all.
Yuffie also.
Oh yeah, and then Yuffie has a kind of like portrait full art, which is just the concept art that Nomura did back during Final Fantasy VII, and it's similar to the Ancient Copper Dragon, where it's like a version of a card that already exists. It's just Yuffie instead, which is pretty common in Magic. So if you think that's weird, like it's a pretty common thing.
Yeah, they've done it. And I think they've confirmed there's going to be a few cards in the set that do that, where they draw actual concept art from games and just use that as the art, which Yuffie is an example of right away.
Yeah, and some of the full arts for like the commanders are very cool. because it's basically just like, it's like a portrait of them, but then in the back it has the Roman numeral from what game they're from.
Yeah.
And so they're really pretty cards. They're simplistic, but they're really pretty. And so I need all of them. Please.
It's going to be dangerous. Look, I've already resigned myself to. I pre-ordered a couple Commander decks because I'm just like, I know I'm going to play Commander, and I know I like these games. Um, I don't think I'm going to go too heavy on like boosters or anything. I'm probably just going to wait and be like, okay, what specific cards do I actually really care about that I'll just like buy a single of? And hopefully that's not one of the cards that happens to end up being silly expensive because it's abusable and in demand for some reason or something.
Yeah,
Because
I mean
boosters that adds up.
yeah, it really depends. Like it has to be a set I really care about. Like the Doctor Who set, it was mainly a commander set, but they also had collector boosters. Like that was a set that I wanted to like shell a lot of money into. I actually ended up not because I just didn't have the money, even though that is like one of my favorite shows ever.
Mhm.
But with Final Fantasy, like I might be going all out. I might.
It's
It's just
dangerous. It's yeah.
it's just so good. It's just
It's
so
yeah.
good.
Especially seeing some of these full art like alternates that you have to like get from the collector sets. It's
Also, like
painful.
Moogle is a new creature type that they're doing, which is crazy.
Oh
It's kind of like with Doctor Who, like they did like Doctor is a creature
yeah.
type for the
I
first
do want to
time.
note something I found funny with that for creature types is because like I mean it's cool they're making Moogle, but there's other cards where they're just not going to invent creature types for every single thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so Ishtola is a cat. Like it's creature type cat warlock.
Mm-hmm.
So I just find it
Yeah,
funny
and
to just like that whole just all the Miqots are just like yeah you're cat. Like
yeah, and some people I actually saw some people mention that they don't really like that they're calling her a warlock on the card. But I
I
don't know
I don't go to 14.
14 well
Yeah.
enough
Like I
to
know
really
Ishtola
like say
because
anything.
of reputation. Like that's I feel like that's the rep character that shows up in everything. And I did play 14 a little bit. So like I did get far enough to like meet her, but I don't
So
have the connection to that series. So
So, as someone who has played Final Fantasy VI, how do you feel about Terra being considered a wizard warrior? Does that sound
uh
right to you?
yeah, that sounds right to me. I don't know if I forget what all the different like class
Of
typings there
course.
are for Magic, but like Wizard Warrior definitely covers like what she does. Um Yeah, I mean, most of these don't bother me. I mean, like, yeah, Cloud is soldier mercenary. That completely checks out.
Yeah, that's
Um,
100%.
yeah, Tidus is just warrior, which like they tend to use that for slightly more generic like fightery people, which like yeah, that's what Tidus is. Um,
I
yeah,
do like how they categorize Sephiroth as an avatar.
mm-hmm.
That's pretty interesting. How they're going with that. Um, but yeah, this is just the beginning. We're gonna get so many more spoilers as time goes on, and I'm very very excited for this set. And if you're listening and you haven't gotten into Magic, but you really are interested in this set, you know, shoot us some messages or some tweets, posts on Twitter or Blue Sky, and at least speaking for myself, I'd be more than happy to try and help you and figure things out and get you get you the beginning tips of getting into the world of Magic.
Yeah, for sure. Same here. Like, I'm totally open to just talk to people about that kind of stuff because like this is cool. I'm active on a couple Discord servers where that's already kind of happening naturally, where people are like, "Oh, I guess I'm finally gonna buy Magic cards. What does this even mean?" Like, because it's like some of this is a little overwhelming, right? Like Commander deck versus standard format. Like, what does that mean? Like, what do you mean standard deck versus Commander deck? um, so
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, outside of that, that was our main story. We have a bunch of fighting game news. The Evo Awards were happening over the past week, and alongside that, a bunch of games announced release dates and roadmaps. So we got some news on that side of things. First being Fatal Fury, City of the Wolves Season 1 roadmap has been revealed. There's going to be 5 fighters that include Andy Bogard coming out summer 2025, Ken from Street Fighter coming out summer 2025, Joe Higashi coming out fall 2025. Chun-Li from Street Fighter coming out winter 2025, and Mr. Big coming out early 2026.
I love how Ken got the pick for this one instead of Ryu. Pretty much specifically so we can have like the ultimate white guy American off between him and Terry.
Terry, yeah,
It's like that's why they picked him. Like we need to have that rivalry of like, just
yeah,
the stock like, yeah, blonde white American dudes that lead like are big in fighting games. Here they are.
yeah. You get the blonde white guy that wears red. We get the blonde white guy that wears red. But I'm also curious as to like how those characters are going to
Handle.
play in that game versus Street Fighter 6. You know what I mean?
Oh, for
Because
sure.
it's just gonna be interesting because like those two games are gonna exist at the same time. And like
Yeah.
granted that happened with like Street Fighter 5 and Tekken 7, but
Yeah. And
it's
I
always
think
interesting to see the interpretations.
for sure, yeah. And I think like I mean, not to say that Fatal Fury at all plays like Street Fighter, but they're at least a little
No.
closer in blood than say like Akuma and Tekken, right? Like that was like a
Yeah.
weird like how are we translating this over? We're going to a 3D fighter with Akuma. Like what does this mean?
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, definitely interested in seeing how they handle them. And then people can be mad at Ken players in more games. I actually don't know how true that is for 6 specifically. I know that was like a meme for some games.
Well, a
But
Ken won the first Evo.
okay, that sounds
A
right.
Ken player won the first Evo.
That
Yeah.
sounds right. That's
But Ken is fun. No, Ken is fun. Ken is good.
no, Ken is fun.
Um,
As someone who plays Ken, I understand. I just also know there's a weight to just like, oh, they play Ken. Great.
yeah, I normally play Ryu, but I really like Manon in Street Fighter 6. She's really fun.
Nice.
So,
Yeah, I like Marissa.
oh yeah, big girl.
Big, yeah. I like a brawler. I sometimes just
Hmm.
need someone who has the heavy punch, and uh, really love the way her execution worked out.
Yeah, no, I think that game is just incredibly well designed and really fun to play. Um, next, Hunter x Hunter, Nen Cross Impact. I'm sorry if I butcher that name. Release date and roadmap revealed. It's releasing on July 17th on PS5, Switch, and Steam. And players who pre-order the game digitally will get access to the game 2 days early. Mephil, Mel, Mepelpito. I'm so sorry. I don't know that. I've not watched Hunter x Hunter yet. I don't know this character's name.
I didn't stick
Is
around
going
long enough to know this character. I think because I watched Hunter x Hunter up to a point. But yeah, I think it's Nefelpito, something like that.
okay. Nefelpito. It will be the first DLC character for season 1 and is releasing in fall with 3 more characters coming in winter 2025, spring 2026, and summer 2026 respectively. I don't care about this game at all, but I know that, some people will, and so I wanted to share the information.
Yeah.
It's like I find it interesting how Hunter x Hunter has had such a wide like life cycle, considering that the history with the manga and like
Sure.
the mangaka getting like having to take long-term hiatuses due to his health. Like
Yeah.
it's one of those things, like I'm kind of surprised that it's still alive and kicking in the way that it is,
I think it's
where
both.
like justifies like, hey, let's make a Hunter x Hunter fighting game.
Yeah. I think it's both that it's like started and stopped multiple times, and the fact that it did get like kind of a refresh when because there's been 2 anime adaptations, and like one of them was like a ways back and ended pretty early, and then they started it up again like from the beginning, and I think that really helped bring in like a new surge of people when that one happened, which that was still like quite a while ago now. Like that was like mid late 2000s, I think. I forget. I lose track of time.
Yeah, it's a long time ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll see. But I know that the manga, like the writer's coming back soon, and like it's gonna continue the manga, so that's cool. Um, next fighting game, Grand Blue Fantasy versus Rising DLC. For season 2, the roadmap has been revealed. And we got all the fighters. We got Galleon coming spring 2025, Wilnas, I'm sorry, summer of 2025, Meg fall 2025, and I missed the last one, but it's coming early 2026. Um Have you checked out Grand Blue Fantasy Versus Rising at all?
A little bit, yeah. I'm not really familiar with like Granblue as an IP in general, but I have checked out a couple of the like games they've done within it, and Versus is one of them. It's neat. I didn't like it enough where it was like, oh, this is going to be the fighter I spend time on now. Not that I spend enough time on any fighter these days,
Yeah, it's hard.
but I thought it was cool. Yeah.
Ilsa is the last fighter. Ilsa, early
Fro-
2026.
From Frozen.
Nope. Nope. Next, Under Night in Birth to Sis. I hope I said that right. The DLC character Ogre has been announced, and he's coming February 19th on PS5, PS4, and PC, and then coming 1 week later on February 26th for the Switch. And then the last story we have the 100-line Last Detective Academy prologue demo is now out on Steam, and it's apparently they're trying to get it on Switch soon as well. The demo is supposed to include the first 7 days of the game, it being 100 days long. And that save will transfer over to the full game when it releases if you're playing it on Steam or Switch. If you pre-order the game digitally, I don't know if it's specifically on Steam or if it's any system on this, but it includes a bonus visual novel called, bear with me here, The 100-Line Last Defense Academy, Former Lives of the SDU File 3, Haruko Shizuhara's First Battle. That is the name of, that's the whole name.
That checks out.
And it was written under the supervision of Kodaka. So, yeah, that's supposed to be some sort of like tie-in to the game for those that really want to get into that new IP. So, any thoughts on any of that, Kev?
I'm excited to check out the demo for 100 Line. I mean, that's come up a couple
Yeah.
times on this podcast where like that's one where I don't know how much I'm actually gonna like it, but I just see the base pitch of like, oh, Uchikoshi's writing and it's a tactical RPG, like cross visual novel. Okay, like I have to
Yeah.
try it. So I'm
Yeah,
actually really happy
100%.
it's a demo and it's the kind that does the save transfer because like I'm probably going to give it a full shot either way, but this will definitely help inform me right away. Like, oh, am I going to be like hyped for this, or am I going to? I'll pick this up and eventually get to it. I'm definitely gonna check the demo out. I feel like we'll probably talk about that next week for what we've been playing because like I want to know.
Yeah, I want to play it too at some point. It's still a ways away, like April, right? So we still have some time until the game comes out to play the demo. So I'm not too worried about any of that. I think I'm just like kind of thinking about where I'm going to want to play that game. Probably PlayStation, just because it's not on Xbox.
It's not on either.
I was on PlayStation either.
It's Switch and PC only for now.
Well, looks like I'm going to be playing that on the Switch then.
Yep. I think I'm gonna do PC. Well, I'm gonna see how well it runs on. Like, hopefully we get a Switch demo because I'd like to see that compared to like playing it on Steam Deck and what.
That's actually fair. That's actually
Yeah.
fair. Because like Raincode like seemed fine on Switch from what I've heard. So I'm not particularly stressing about performance with this game, but yeah, I'm excited about this game. I think this is like a game that can potentially creep up on us and really impress us.
It might have the sauce. Like it just
Yeah, it might have the sauce. The sauce that like, very few people will still play regardless of it, but it'll have the sauce for those that know,
real ones.
So now that we've gotten through the news for the week, let's talk about what we've been playing. I have been playing a bunch of stuff, but I haven't finished anything, and I'm not ready to talk about anything. So this is the Kevin show this week, where Kevin has played the Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii demo, and he's going to talk to us all about that.
Yeah, so it's actually kind of funny timing because at least as of us recording this, it'll be a couple days later when this is live. But review embargo like just went up for this game, so
Yes.
we're kind of seeing everyone's full takes on it as well. And it's got like pretty solid scores. It's a little all over the place, which I feel like happens with Yakuza games, but it's I think it's averaging somewhere around like an 80 on Metacritic, something like that.
Yeah.
And that tracks a little bit with what I played in the demo. It's a very short demo. You can check
Oh,
this out for
really?
yourself, and it is like if you just mainline the demo and don't take your time doing anything like optional, it's like 30 minutes, 45. Like it's not very long. It basically throws you into like an immediate tutorial battle to be like, oh, like here's how combat works in this one. After you get through that, you're then presented with Hawaii, where you can wander around a little bit if you want, or you can go to Madlantis. And once you go to Madlantis, it's just like, here's the ship combat game, and we're done. Like, so it just gets it cuts to the quick if you don't take your time running around. Which, if you run around, there's a couple extra things you can do. They have a couple mini games you can check out. Karaoke, where there's 3 of the tracks. One of them is, of course, the legendary 24-hour Cinderella, the classic one for him back in Yakuza 0. But then 2 other new tracks you can check out that have him singing as well. And then there's a new batting cage game where like batting cages are something that have been pretty consistent in the series, but it's always like a very traditional one, like, oh, try to get multiple home runs in a row, don't miss. This one's this whole wild pirate themed one where you're trying to open up a chest by striking exploding barrels with the balls you're hitting, and like you need to actually figure out what the most optimal way to like make more barrels explode. It's actually kind of neat. It feels a little easy, but like that's also just what's in the demo, so I'm sure there's going to be like harder courses in the full version. Regular combat feels really fun. What was in the demo was fairly easy, and that actually was a thing I was seeing in a lot of reviews saying like, oh, combat in this one overall feels a little too forgiving, like start to finish. Sometimes it's really fun though. Majima feels really strong. There's lots of really fun combo potential where you can do the air mix-ups. The heat actions in this game are so fun. They give you a bunch of those right away in the demo. I think my
Heck
personal
yeah.
favorite is in his Mad Dog fighting style. You have a counter against enemies that are using swords, where he like bends backwards to be like parallel with the ground, bites the sword with his mouth, rips it out of the guy's hand, and then like stunts it back at them with a ranged attack. Which, by the way, I love. There's always like this running joke in the Yakuza series of like, none of these men have killed people. Like they've never actually like
Yeah.
they've beaten people up, but they've
Yeah.
never killed anyone. Meanwhile, Majima's heat actions in this game are like snapping necks, stabbing dudes with swords, throwing a sword across the room into their chest. Like, nope, never killed a man, never happened. Don't worry about it.
He just put him to sleep. What do you mean? You
Yeah,
know? Come on now.
they're just a little sleepy after blood loss. Um, Another thing that was in the demo, and I'm sure is not representative of the whole in the game, is you can also do. They did this in Man Who Erased His Name as well, where you can do costume customization.
Mm.
And what's neat for this one is you can do it per fighting style, because like part of the gimmick is in Mad Dog fighting style, he's wearing the Hawaiian T-shirt and he's kind of more just regular Majima, and then in the pirate fighting style, suddenly he's got the tricorn hat and wearing a pirate coat. So you can actually customize it to where if you want to be pirate mode all the time in both fighting styles, you can. You can have him wear some of his more traditional outfits. I think there's been kind of hintings of other stuff like a cowboy outfit, and like you can see the outline for it and unlockable things. I think a pre-order bonus is like you can dress him as Kiryu, like in the
It's like
traditional
the
gray.
newsletter thing, like the
Yeah,
sign up, the newsletter sign up. Yeah,
that's
you
right. I
get.
think there's a pre-order one too. Maybe the pre-order one's Ichiban, where you can wear Ichiban's like suit, because I think they have a
Maybe
couple
it just
different ones.
feels wrong. It
Yeah,
just looks wrong. It feels wrong. I'm like,
no, I get you.
nah.
I get you. You also get to customize the tiger a little bit too, just little Goro. Um,
Yes, I remember. I remember when they did the showcase, and like the episode you talked about that. I saw that you could customize a little tiger, and I just did a screenshot, and I was like, "Game of the year!
Yeah,
This is
no,
game of the
they're
year!"
genius. Yeah, I look. There's a part of me that like I don't know what to expect from this one writing wise, but like it's definitely going to be fun, and not necessarily challenging, not necessarily like the top like best written one dramatic wise or whatever. It could be. Who knows? Like we'll see. I mean, reviewers know, but I don't know. I haven't played it yet. But I at least know that like the Majima vibes are there for combat, and I'm excited. The Mad Dog stuff was so fun. Like I love that fighting style.
Yeah, it's I have some weird thoughts on it because like, and we'll get into this a little bit more when we get to the topic of the show because it is about like a dragon and
It
judgment and like
is.
the future of the like that kind of world and those IPs. But like I feel like if I Like I like Majima. Like
Yeah.
don't get me wrong, but I think I definitely know a lot of people, especially in the game space, that love Majima.
Hey,
Like that really think that um he is the highlight of that series,
some
and
of us
like
have perfectly normal wives that, think he's a really neat character.
that
And
don't fanfic relationships with him, and like you're a real one. You're a real
your
one for
words, not
that.
mine. I wasn't going to bring that up. All right. No,
Yeah, like it's fine. It's fine. We don't judge.
we don't judge.
That sounds sarcastic. I do not judge. I do not judge. I'm saying you as the husband, I'm just like, good on you, sir, for letting
I
her.
love my wife and her fictional husband.
Yeah, and her
Anyways,
fantasies. Yeah, exactly.
she's
Um,
in the room, by the way, and I just saw her die a little.
um, but I just feel like that if this was the next big Majima thing after Zero, I would feel a little kind of. I don't know how I would feel about it.
Yeah, there's two camps to this because we talked about this. I forget if this was in our first episode or in like our demo one that didn't actually go live. Um, I So here's the thing: there are people who were like, "Oh man, I love Wacky Majima," and they saw Pirate Adventures and went, "Awesome! Like, great! I'm gonna have Wacky Majima times." And then there's people who are like, "I love scarred, traumatic Majima." And I want that like random emotional depth that Zero displayed. Because that's the thing, right? Zero and like a bonus chapter in Kiwami 2 are the main places that's really showcased. And then every other game is like, man, that Majima guy is such a character. And like there's little bits here and there. But yeah, it's one of those things where it's like he's getting a starring role. And are we going to touch on like his personal growth and who he is as a person? Or is it going to be, oh man, wacky amnesia pirate adventures? Um, it's actually really funny. So there's stories before about how back when Nagoshi still worked with Sega, that Yokoyama wanted to do a plot line where like Kiryu had amnesia, and Nagoshi was always just like, no, like
Yes.
we're not
Yeah.
doing that. Like I don't like that. Why would we do it? And then the moment that he's gone from the company and we're getting a Majima spin-off game, it's like Majima has amnesia. Like Yokoyama finally got his chance to like put that plot line in there. I don't know, man. Yeah, I'm the same way. Like I think especially if you started at zero, which is the case for a lot of people in the West, because that was really the game that like made it big over here.
Mm-hmm.
That's such a way to be introduced to Majima because it actually makes him a very layered character.
Yes.
And none of the other games really touch on that in the same way. And so now that he finally has his own game, it's like, what are we doing with this? Like, what are we going to
Yeah.
do? And I just don't know. I would love for it to do that. I don't know if I trust that that's what's going to happen. I haven't really read any reviews in that respect. Like, I've really kept it just to mechanical stuff because I want to go in open-minded, or as open-minded as I can be, because clearly I do already have some reservations, worries.
Yeah. I would say, as someone who played the Yakuza series, I started with Like a Dragon, which is true. Yes. And you do interact with Majima a little bit in that game. But, for someone who started more or less with Zero and then went all the way to 6 and then like geared up for Infinite Wealth, Majima's stuff is jarring.
Yeah.
I would say. Like and it's going to feel, I know it's going to feel that way because that was not the original plan for Majima like that. But it's jarring. It's just like what it feels bad kind of when I play through these other game where it's like, the first Kiwami 1, which I hold a special place in my heart because I'm a Nishikiyama guy, that he's just like this random guy that comes up to you and fights you
A lot.
randomly throughout the game. And then 2 is like, oh, he has a construction company, and like that's when I was like, okay, this is pretty funny. This is pretty good.
Yeah.
And then like I don't even remember if he's in 3.
He is in 3. Yes, he has a fairly decent sized role in 3, but it's also he's not on camera like a ton. And then I think it's 4 where he's literally just like shoved in a cop car.
You see him getting arrested, and then he's basically just like, y'all need to get the out of here.
Well, and so
that's
Yeah, and so some
Yeah.
context for people that also don't know like Yakuza like release order and history. The thing is that again, Zero is the game that really like fleshed him out a lot and made him a much more deep character. And that game came out after we had like 5 mainline games. You know, we had one, two, three, four,
Yes.
and five. And so in those games originally, he was just like this kind of unhinged, slightly funny, like supporting character. And he had a little like you'd see a moment where, especially with like Saijima, they have like kind of their brotherhood type thing going on. There's some flashbacks with there. But he's not really that fully fleshed out. And then Zero happens, and then Kiwami 2 happens, where they add a little bonus chapter you can play as him, and that kind of touches on the Zero stuff a little bit again. And it's like, oh, this stuff is really good, and that's like the only time we get it. Um, yeah, it's
Yeah.
I as much as I love Like a Dragon, I do have questions about like the general goal moving forward with some characters, and Majima's a big one.
Yeah.
I'm still a little surprised he actually is getting a dedicated game, but there is that question of like, is it doing justice to the version that people want to see? And again,
Yeah.
some
And is
people are
it,
totally cool with just like, oh, that wacky guy.
and is it really just, and is it just kind of serving as a, like, not like a money piece for RGG? Like, I don't want to make it sound like that bad, but it's like, is it going to provide anything of substance for the series, as like for a series that really like does
Yeah,
characters and stories justice? Like, is this game really going to provide anything,
for sure.
of substance, especially like the fact that he has amnesia? I'm like, okay, like if he has amnesia, like if he gets his memories back, like will he remember everything? Is he going to remember that whole experience? It's just like,
Yeah,
and it's just kind of like, I don't know. I don't want to say go as far to say is that puts a bad taste in my mouth, because like I haven't experienced anything yet, but just everything. I'm
I
sensing a
will
lot of red flags. I'm
I
sensing
will
a lot
say,
of red flags
did
here.
you see the latest launch trailer that came out like 5 days ago, 4 days ago?
No,
So I
no.
will say the launch trailer does have a little bit of dialogue that like gives me a hint of hope, because it basically has this line of him being like, "I get the feeling I wasn't a good person," or like, "I think I was kind of a piece of shit." And so there's this whole thing about how him with amnesia doesn't know who he is, but he gets the feeling that like maybe he's not a good person, and then reconciling like his current amnesia state with who he might have been, and like what that means. I think there are ways they can play with that concept, um, but outside of like that line in that trailer, there's not a whole lot of signs of what they're gonna do with that. Um, yeah, I don't know. I'm very curious, and there's more I can talk about, but I'll save that for because again, the topic of the show is actually going to be about Like a Dragon and its future. So I'll save some other thoughts for that. But
Yeah. Because you got a little bit more to talk about, for a different game.
yes, I do. I won't spend too much time on this because part of the reason I want to bring this up is because it's also kind of a soft announcement for a future episode we want to do. I've been putting a lot of time into Final Fantasy VII Rebirth finally. Like I got halfway through it last year, and I was not good about finishing games last year, to say the least. I'm fixing that this year. I put a ton of time into it. I'm not quite done. I'm less done than I thought I would be because the game did that fun last second. Oh, you thought you were about to get in the final phase? What if we give you a rush of new side quests right now? So I'm contending with that at the moment. But I'm getting close to done. And the reason I'm making sure to finish this one soon is we want to do a 1 year later spoiler cast on it. Like let's really get into the weeds about this game. So I don't want to talk too much right now because some of it's still in process, and I want to save the real nuggets for when we do that. But I will say. I'm having a great time with it. I remembered I was hooked when it first came out until my momentum got broken up, and I'm having a great time with it again. I do understand and have slightly agreed with some of the complaints about like side quest overload, like a little bit, because I definitely hit a point where I was like, oh man, like Coral was a big area that was like broken up into two. I'm sure the next areas are going to be small. No. Okay, well the one after this will be smaller. No. The one after this will be smaller, and it finally was like a little bit. It's a lot. Like there was a part where I was just like, man, I just like the momentum's getting going in the story. I can't be taking breaks to do Queen's Blood every like. I don't have time for 7 matches of Queen's Blood right now. Hold on, what's happening with Sephiroth? Um, but I'm happy I'm finally getting back to it. I definitely have some more thoughts that might transform further once I'm finally done with it. But I mean, it is a great game. Like overall, it's one of those things where like we talked about this before a little bit, where like there's games where you'll just walk away being like, man, I loved this, 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10, whatever. Now here's my 40 minutes of complaints.
Yes.
Right? Like it's like I love
100%.
this so much, and that's why the flaws are standing out to me harder right now. Like I need to just get
Yes.
this out. I love this, but also why?
Why on this 100%.
Yeah, and maybe some of that'll change once I finish. But yeah. Oh god, yeah. There's one thing in particular I definitely want to talk about, but that's spoiler territory, so I don't want to get into that right now.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah,
it's
good stuff.
We'll have to save
And
it.
yeah, it's good stuff, and look forward to us getting into it later if you don't mind spoilers, and talking with some guests as well.
Yeah. But until then, we're gonna get into the topic of the show.
Topic of the show.
Which again we kind of alluded to earlier in the episode, being on the future of the Like a Dragon Yakuza Judgment series, that universe, and like
Yes.
what we think that's going to look like, what our hopes, our dreams,
Yeah.
our predictions, things like that.
So I have an opening question for you on this, if you don't mind me immediately hijacking.
100%.
Is Project Sentry an RGG game? Like, is it I mean, it's an RGG game, but is it a Like a Dragon game? Even though that is the same words, but in English.
Is Judgment?
Is Project Sentry?
Oh, it's Project Century. Oh, I think it's going to be I think it's going to be very in line with it, yes.
Yes, but is it considered? There's a reason I'm asking this. Like, is it? Would you think they would consider it a Like a Dragon game? Because one of the things with Like a Dragon, right, is RGG has said they want to have yearly releases. They have a schedule they want to stick to of games coming out.
Oh,
and does this game count as one of those titles?
No, I wouldn't consider that. No.
Yeah. There's been some interesting debates. I've seen some people be like, does this count as an RGG game or like a Dragon game or not? Especially because like I've seen debates on whether or not that setting is supposed to be Kamurocho, like however many years back, and I'm like, that's clearly Shangri-La, like in the corner, like that. I know this street, like that, like
yeah.
Maybe they're just reusing assets like they do, but like this feels like this feels like an older Kamurocho to me, and maybe I'm just like losing my mind here, but I saw that one street section and I'm like, I know that street.
Yeah, but if it's not like, I guess the way I see it differently is that like in Yakuza or Judgment game, it's not out of the question that I can potentially run into a character from the opposite franchise.
Sure.
I mean, we're seeing that literally in Pirates, where Kaito is going to be.
Well, and see, that's where I differ though. Like, I would include Judgment in like the yearly release cycle for Like a Dragon. Like, I think Judgment counts for that.
Yes, Judgment I do. Project Century I do not.
Interesting. Yeah, for real quick, for people that don't know what this is, because I realize we just dove into that concept right away. Back at the Game Awards, RGG announced a couple of different games, including them making the next Virtua Fighter. And the other game they revealed and kind of just teased more lightly was called Project Sentry. We saw a little bit of gameplay, a little bit of cinematic, and the thing that really draws this differently from their other titles is when it takes place. I'm trying to double check right now what year they said it's supposed to be, but I want to say it's like, is it early 1900s? Late 1800s? I forget right now.
I don't know.
I can't remember what year it's supposed to be. It's older. It is not contemporary like the rest, but it's also not as far back as like a Dragon Ishin was, right? Where it's
1915.
1915. Okay, early 1900s. Red Dead Redemption time in Japan. Yeah, and so they haven't really given us any big details on this other than the name and the fact that, whether or not it is a Like a Dragon title, it does certainly have some of the vibe of like the beat 'em up ones, like the little bit of combat we saw. A fun, like, theory I've seen floating around a little bit, and actually Christine reminded me of this to bring up when we're talking about it. So there's a lot of theories that the main character for this, like the face capture, because that's the thing with Like a Dragon nowadays, like most new characters are based on their voice actor or based on like someone. He looks like the actor that played Kiryu in the 2000s movie. Not 2000, but whatever, 2005, 2007. And people are like, did they hire that guy? Like, are they basing him off of Kiryu from 2007? And is that like a weird link back to RGG stuff? And that's not
That'd actually
confirmed
be really
anywhere.
cool. I don't know. I don't know anything about that movie, but like that would be really cool.
I need to watch it. I've actually heard a lot of good things. I love
This kind of tease that he's like he's
there's a
an
way
ancestor.
Yeah.
An ancestor to Kiryu.
Because that's even what they do with like Ishin, right? Is that they have Kiryu playing these historical characters, and now it's like, well, we still have a Kiryu playing a historical character. It's just not the model we're used to. Real quick side tidbit about the Yakuza movie, because I remembered this, and it's part of why I want to see it. A really common complaint about that movie is that Majima wears his eye patch on the wrong side. And the reason why that is they made sure to hire an actor that only had one eye, but it was the wrong one.
He has both eyes.
He has both eyes? I thought it was a thing where... Oh, okay.
Wow.
Okay, so he does have both eyes, but he is partially blind in one of them, and so they covered that, which didn't line up with Majima.
Ooh.
And I just think that's hilarious. Just how that worked out. Because people bring that up, it's like, oh, why has Majima got the wrong... yeah, I need to watch that, though. I have heard mixed, but overall, like, worth checking out type things. I've heard more positive things about that one than I have the most recent Amazon show, which I did watch, so...
Did you not like the Amazon show?
Okay, here's the thing about the Amazon show. I think if it wasn't Like a Dragon, if it was just a show about Yakuza, I'd be like, oh, like that was a solid show. And to be clear, I am not the type of person that thinks that an adaptation has to be one-to-one faithful. Like, I'm always down for adaptations to take liberties in order to, like, better fit the medium. Because there's some stuff where you just can't. Like, you just can't take the exact one-to-one plot of, you know, Yakuza 1 and make that perfectly translate to a 6 to 10 episode series. Like, I'm always for stuff to be changed. But there is such a thing as, like, the right changes and the wrong changes, and there's just some choices in that show I don't get. I don't know why they chose to take the direction they did for how to handle a few characters. I don't get why they chose to do some of the pacing things they did. Yeah, it's one of those things where, like, again, if it was just its own show entirely, I'm like, yeah, this is like a solid show. But just knowing that it's supposed to be Like a Dragon, I didn't really care for it. And again, I'm down for liberties, but I just don't like the liberties they took, basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh yeah, I still need to watch it, and I want to watch it. I just haven't gotten to it yet, and so I just thought I would ask you, just because we were talking about the other mediums of the franchise.
Yeah. So anyways, getting back to just actual games in the series and the future of it.
Yeah.
After all those
yeah, I'm honestly kind of worried. I'm honestly kind of worried about Infinite Wealth. While a fun game, has me worried about a lot of like really like front facing stuff about the series currently.
Yeah.
Judgment has its whole other thing with, you know, the actor who's designed after Yagami, and like how we may likely never get another Judgment game because of that, which makes me so sad.
Yeah.
Because Judgment...
Real quick history on this for anyone listening that doesn't know what this is about. So Judgment had a whole problem. Judgment's main character is modeled after a real-life famous actor in Japan. He was specifically cast because he played a lawyer in a TV series, and that's like one of his big roles in Japan. And so when the game initially came out, like, everything was fine. And then when Sega wanted to do PC ports and all the things that come with when a PC port happens and how people can take advantage of that, his representation was not happy about it. I've heard all kinds of different stories about why exactly they weren't happy. Some of them sound like kind of reasonable things, and other things sound a little more out there. I'm not looking to get into theorizing on that right now, but it was a whole thing. And that led to questions about whether or not it would ever get ported to PC, and even if it did, whether or not we'd ever see him do another game, because that is kind of a breakdown in relations potentially. The game did get ported to PC, so like that happened. Clearly something got resolved. But because we haven't really heard any hard news about like Judgment 3 yet, there's all kinds of like Is that still happening? Like, are we getting another one? I don't know. And like, we've seen the characters. Kaito's been used a couple times again. He was in
Yeah,
Man Who Erased His Name real quick.
yeah.
He's gonna be at least like a DLC character in Pirate Yakuza. I don't know if it's him there actually in plot or just a fun DLC cameo for like your pirate crew because they do that a lot. Um, but yeah, so there's like kind of hanging questions and like, is Judgment gonna keep going? Because I really like Judgment like a lot,
It's
and I would love
so
that to happen.
good.
It's so
It's
good
so
because like
good.
because part of the original plan, right, was that Like a Dragon was going to turn into an RPG, a turn-based RPG, and
Yes,
then
and Judgment
Judgment
was
was
going to serve
like,
as the action game.
yes, it was going to carry on the legacy of like Dragon Engine action games. And it's great. Like honestly, like the first Judgment is incredible. It's like part of my holy trio of RGG titles. It's that, Like a Dragon 7, and Zero. Like those are the top three for me.
Hmm.
And while it's not one of my top ones, the combat in Lost Judgment is phenomenal. Like the combat in that game is so good.
Yeah,
Uh, and so I want more of that, please. And we don't know. And like, there's a possibility maybe that's like the next game. Maybe that's a 2026 title. I've seen some people kind of hope that because we're seeing this rhythm of again, RGG wants Like a Dragon to be a once a year thing. This year is Majima. It's a smaller title. It's a side thing. We're not going to get an Ichiban game right away because the JRPG ones are much larger in scope. And so maybe like it's time for an action Judgment title again. Like that would be cool. And we don't know if that's happening yet. A lot of hope. A lot of hopium.
it's. Do you
But
know? Do you know off the top of your head how big RGG is as a studio?
I don't, but I can look that up.
Because the reason why I'm asking is like we know that we're getting two new games, including a fighting game,
Yeah.
which is I feel like is a lot of resources.
Yeah, which is also why I asked about is does Project Century count, right? Because like in one world it's like, oh, that takes up the Like a Dragon slot that year. Cool. In another world it's like, oh, they're making a Like a Dragon game alongside Century and alongside Virtua Fighter. What?
Yeah, and so it looks like as of 2021,
It was like over
the
300, I
studio
forget what you
size
said.
was like over 300.
Yeah.
So if we could say like 3 to 400 right now, like
And they
I
might have downsized too, because like that was a thing that happened like where everyone ballooned in 2020 and 21, and then like 22, 23, they started being like, oh, never mind, market's changing. But I
it
don't know. Like we don't. That's the most recent number we have.
yeah, it just seems like from what we're seeing, like what we've seen and just kind of the trends is that like they work on two games at a time, and we know what those two games are now. Now, well, I mean, three games technically, if we want to talk about because Pirate's about to come out too. So, like, once Pirate's done, like, there's also been rumors about Kiwami 3 for
Yeah.
a while. Like, is that going to be a thing? There are things that they can do outside of um the Project Century and Virtua Fighter to like pass the time while they're working on those things. I'm not trying to downplay Project Century because that is going to be like what you kind of expect from a Like a Dragon or
It
Judgment
looks
game.
like a big title, certainly. Like it
Yeah,
looks like
yeah,
equivalent to like Judgment. Like maybe not necessarily the more recent Like a Dragon main lines, because 7 and 8 ballooned a little bit, turning into RPGs. Like the hour count on those is way higher than the Kiryu games. Uh,
yeah, yeah. But I think that my my main thing is that like Infinite Wealth ended on such a weird note, and now we're just kind of in a limbo state for the foreseeable future. Like we don't know when we're getting Like a Dragon 9.
yeah, I mean
And
you can theorize that that's like a 28 title. I think there's been like that kind of number flying around of like roughly every 4 years moving forward, but that's an estimate. That's not really like a set in stone thing. Um,
yeah, and that's crazy to me. That's
yeah,
crazy. Like I think that they needed to finish whatever that story is because that story is not finished,
yeah.
and then go into the new stuff. Give the series some time to breathe, take a break, whatever what have you. Allow RGG to do some new IPs. Like I
Yeah.
think that would have been like the better call there. but it's also because again, like how that game ends. Like Kiryu is alive.
Spoilers.
Spoilers. He's having treatment for his cancer. Uh, Haruka comes to see him. He takes his name back.
Man, you're just going through
There's
all of
so
it right now.
but like the thing is like this next game is gonna involve the Daidoji. The Daidoji is gonna be like the
That would make
main
sense.
villains of this game.
We don't know that for a fact, but it makes sense.
But it makes sense.
Yeah. But like,
even though like this whole Daidoji stuff is, they basically made all this Daidoji stuff pointless at this point. Well, at least it's kind of like what you're talking about earlier, where like, oh, you're literally killing people in the gameplay of Yakuza, but canonically, never killed anybody.
It's weird too.
The amount of times, like Kiryu has been seen publicly, like on TV, on news.
Yeah.
Nah, he's still in hiding.
Well, and here's the weird thing too, is that like it's somewhat a recent thing. They've been trying to do more obvious lead-ins to next games, because like there were suspenseful endings in older Yakuza titles under Nagoshi, but like they left it open in a way that like you still had no idea what the next game would even be about. Right, like it just like each story is basically its own. There were ways to tie it back to older ones, and sometimes they'll sneak in like it was this guy all along who was from 4 games ago. Do you remember that guy? Like they would do that a little bit, but like it was never like here's an overarching plot where we're going to see this thing come up again. And as much sense as like Daidoji being the opponent in the next game, I honestly don't know if that's what they're going to do. Like, maybe Yokoyama's interested in trying to have more overarching plots like that, or maybe it's just going to be like 4 years have passed, stuff played out, and now here's this new plot line of things happening. Like, I just don't know.
Because
that's the other thing too.
I don't know, there's so many things that I'm like, I don't think it's going to happen, but there's so many things that I'm worried about. Like what if like the next game starts and Kiryu's dead? Like it's just,
and here's
Kiryu's
the thing,
like
right?
just killed, time skip, like.
Well, and there's going to be a time skip, because like
I know,
usually
but
the games release, like usually the year the game releases in, or at least shortly before, is when the game takes place. Like they have a chronology that lines up with original releases. Obviously, remasters mess with that. So like if the next game comes out in like 2028, it's going to be like a 4 or 5 year time skip from Infinite Wealth. And like, what does that mean? What does that mean for the ending of that game? Right?
Yeah, I know. It doesn't make any fucking sense. And when I talk to people and they're like, "Oh, Infinite Wealth fucking rocked," I'm like, "Am I talking to another? Did y'all play a different game than me?"
Well, okay, I will say I like Infinite Wealth. I do a lot. Like I still get
no,
it.
but I'm talking about like the story.
Yes, no, the story has good moments, and the overarching and especially how it ends, I'm not. I think I've said this before, like on here when talking about recent Like a Dragon games and like Yokoyama as a writer. I think he goes into a story with like specific scenes he wants to have happen that are really dramatic and really cool, and those are great scenes. Like there are some specific scenes in Infinite Wealth that, for all my complaints, there are some specific scenes that are phenomenal. And then he's not entirely sure how to navigate his way into and out of those, and what the actual full framework looks like. Like I think some writers start at the beginning and some writers start at the end, and I think he starts at like the 3/4 mark and then is like, and then we got to fill what's going on all around these. And I don't, yeah. And the other thing too, like I can complain about this a lot, but this kind of ties back to the Majima thing. Like I'm not sure about the handling of past characters and what it means for them moving forward. Because like that was a huge complaint for mine in Infinite Wealth, is like how they handle, I forget if we brought this up on one of the past podcasts, but the Jimas, as in Daigo Dojima, Majima, Daijima, where it's like, in Infinite Wealth, I won't get into details, even though we're already spoilering some stuff, but like, they're basically treated as one character. Like, they're always together, you go see them as a group, they all kind of follow the same plot beat as a group, and they all show up together again, like, and like, that's their plot, is like, it's just them as a unit, and never mind a lot of important context for each of them individually that like just doesn't come up at all.
Yeah. And but even on top of that, it's like Ichiban, right? Like a Dragon has one of the best origin stories I've ever experienced. Like, I think it's incredible. And they didn't know what to do with Ichiban after that game. they were like, hey, it really does feel like that RGG was like, we want to make a game that takes place in Hawaii. How do we get Ichiban to Hawaii?
Okay, wait. This just reminded me of one of my huge hangups. This is technically a spoiler, but it's from much earlier in the game, and it's also part of the game setup. And I'm gonna jump over to Kiryu real quick, but like I think this helps sum up the like why, like where are we going here? Kiryu has cancer. That's like the whole setup for like his involvement in 8 and like what that might mean for him in the future or whatever. And if you've played Like a Dragon games, you'll know that Kiryu smokes and drinks all the time. Doesn't take a lot of math to go, oh yeah, like he probably, yeah, dude smokes like constantly all the time. That happens. The way he gets cancer in Infinite Wealth is he like takes on a job moving nuclear waste as part of his role with the Daidoji, and then some of it spills out, and because of radiation from that, maybe that's how he got cancer. And there's like a whole thing of like how that kind of thematically ties in with things happening in Infinite Wealth, but it's such like a bizarre pull out of nowhere to be like, oh yeah, Kiryu has cancer. That makes sense. I follow. Wait, what? Like, how
Yeah, no, and then on top of all that, like, the Daidoji was like, he was just supposed to like disappear and just not get involved with like anyone in his past life. And then like the Daidoji's like, oh no, we're having you work for us now. What? No, that's not what the deal was. Like at the end of Yakuza 6, like that's not what y'all were supposed to be doing. And so like that's the whole thing, was just like the Daidoji stuff, just like, and that's, you know, that was like supposed to be, even though Nagoshi was still at RGG for like 7, like,
yeah,
it was clear that that was supposed to be Kiryu's send off. Like, yes, he makes a short appearance in Like a Dragon 7, you know,
yeah,
but he didn't feel remotely like invasive to Ichiban's story. It didn't feel like, oh, they're bringing Kiryu back, he's gonna be a main character too, or he's gonna be a significant character too. No, it was very like kind of quick and like, I should not be here, like blah 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 blah. Let's get this done, and that's it.
yeah.
And then,
I do think Nagoshi was also at least partially involved in Man Who Erased His Name, in so much that started as DLC for 7, but I don't know how involved he was in that project overall. Like, I don't know if he had story direction on that. I don't know how much of that was him or just purely Yokoyama. But I do believe he had at least some hands on Man Who Erased His Name to an extent. Because the last full game with him was Lost Judgment, for sure.
yeah. I think I just think that like Yakuza is a really great example of like, I don't know, like I have this thing, and it's maybe because I'm just like, I'm so story focused when I play a lot of games, where like I feel like a lot of people, if the game is fun but the story isn't like, the story has like these hypocrisies or like something like that's like, and it's not like they're not hiding it, it's like pretty obvious, like people are just kind of like hand wave it, and then I'm just like, did we play a different game where like all of this shit that doesn't make sense happened, and y'all are still saying that like, oh, this is one of the best games of the year? Like, what? No. Like, because you know, it got nominated for, and I'm not trying to like, I'm really not trying to shit on RGG. I love RGG.
Well, it's again,
But
it's
like
that thing
what,
of like, you like a thing so much that you get a little more worried when there are things that worry you.
yeah, the more you love something, the more critical you are of it.
Yeah.
And so like, when Infinite Wealth got nominated for Best Narrative at the Game Awards, I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? That's insane. Like, it's just, there's so much wrong with its narrative. Like, it's you know,
Well, and I think
if you
to pin it down a little bit,
yeah,
like just like to pin in what's wrong with the narrative, because I do think like it's worth exploring a little bit. RPG games in general, like every story is kind of its own standalone for a while. Again, there are some light connections, but something that does feel consistent across them for the most part is characterization and character personalities, and how, you know, their relationships form over games and like what they mean to each other. And Infinite Wealth really feels like it ignores a lot of those things. Is where I
yes.
think a lot of the headaches come from.
And I want to say, like, the things that like it does super well, like the Kiryu stuff is fantastic. Like, not the ending of Kiryu, but like the side quests, the the nostalgia trip, right?
Sure.
Go walking down memory lane, running into characters from older games that had relationship with Kiryu, like like the FBI agent. Oh my god, dude! Or the CIA agent. Oh my god, from
Oh,
Kiwami 2.
yeah.
That was my girl. I shipped them so hard, Kevin. I shipped them so
Uh,
hard. And then when Yakuza 3 started, and then you find out that she moved to America, I wanted to fight God.
Did you
I
did you
wanted to
check
fight
her
God.
bio update during that game?
In Yakuza 3?
Yeah. So
No.
if you check her biography as you're playing that game, this is such a dumb specific detail. If you check her biography as the game progresses, it gets slightly more info about what's happening with her in America. But it's like literally like, oh, is starting like as an agent in training or whatever. Oh,
Yeah.
rebuffs advances from a fellow agent. Oh, is getting ready to go on a date with this agent. And it's like, great, we're just learning how like just immediately after Kiryu, like, all right, like moving on. Like I can move on.
Yeah.
It's like fair, honestly, like makes sense. But it's just really funny they took the time to be like, we're gonna put this detail in there.
It's just like that's one of the few things throughout the like Kiryu story, like before Like a Dragon, that really pissed me off because those fuckers were in love. They were in love with each other.
Yeah, I mean, they were
Like
like
I got
action movie
more
in love, but
I got more romance from that game than in Kiwami 1. Like granted,
yeah, a lot of that off
granted,
screen for one.
a lot of that off screen, but like still, I was just like I was like, oh, I'm shipping these guys so hard, and then she's just gone, and she doesn't come back until like Infinite Wealth for a single scene, and it's like I was devastated. I was devastated.
Because of this, I need to share my frustrating character disappearance because
Sure.
this one bothers me a lot, like a lot, and it's really funny to me how they seem to just like neglect him now. Florist of Sai. So Florist of Sai is this major supporting character in like 1 through 5. Like he shows up consistently. He's one of the few characters that is in like every game up to a point.
Yes.
And the whole thing with Florist of Sai is that he's like the ultimate information guy. Like he's who you go to when you need to find out what's been happening in the underworld or like what shady weird things are going down. Like that's the guy you got to go see. And in Yakuza 6, where like Kiryu's like, oh man, I really need to get some information on what's happened while I've been gone, like I've been away, and I need to know what happened to Haruka, and it's like never comes up, doesn't exist. Like no one even asks about him. And in Infinite Wealth, when you're doing all of your like, oh, like I'm going down memory lane, I'm seeing stuff, there is no memory associated with him specifically. There is a memory about his like place, which was this underground like casino thing. Like you have a flashback about that, but there's no flashbacks about Florist of Sai specifically. Like they just deleted him, and it makes no sense. Like
that's
I don't know
crazy.
if like,
I didn't even think about that.
No, it's
You're
so
right.
weird. Like he disappears right when he would be directly relevant to the plot. And then they just like never talk about him again ever. I don't know if like the likeness actor like got in trouble with someone or something and they were like, we're not using this guy anymore or something. I don't know. It just like they just deleted him. It was so weird.
Wow. But yeah, that was a really long conversation to talk about just like how Ichiban and Kiryu are both in really weird spots. Kiryu in a more literal sense. Ichiban in a more
where are we going
writing sense, like what are we doing with Ichiban at this point? Because in Infinite Wealth, like part of the game was finding his mom, and then the other part was being able to be normal about talking to a woman, and that was his whole story. But then, again, in the game before, it is this really compelling like origin story. And like, I was like, granted, it's just Sora if he was in the Yakuza, but still very compelling origin story, really great characters, and like I just feel like all of that was kind of thrown by I do think the original characters in Infinite Wealth, the new party members, I think they're all great. I do think that. Also,
Eric.
They didn't bring back Eri.
Well, Eri isn't canon, is the thing, right? Like,
no, it's fucked exist. Up. That's fucked up. It's
She's
bullshit.
not canon. I'm sorry. I feel that pain too.
But... No, non-canon party members are bullshit.
Well, the problem with Eri is if she's a party member, then Ichiban's also a multi-billionaire who runs a senbei company. Like,
hell yeah, he is. Hell yeah, he is.
Also, real quick, does this mean that Nanba is Donald Duck and Adachi is Goofy?
Probably. I mean, Psycho. Would I say Psycho? I wouldn't say Psycho's like. I wouldn't say Psycho's like Kairi. Psycho's got more. Well, no. I would say Kairi has a backbone.
Yeah.
I would say Kairi has a backbone.
Anyways.
Yeah. No, I would say that's pretty accurate. I would say it's pretty accurate. You know what I mean?
It works out.
And so, yeah, I really want them to figure these things out. Here's the thing. This is what I'll say to end on this note regarding this specific thing.
Yeah.
If Like a Dragon 9 comes out and it is like near the same level of Like a Dragon 7, I will shut up. I'll shut up about it, because if they take the time to put in the work and really give us a really grand finale for Kiryu that like this game was marketed as but isn't actually, and they do stuff with Ichiban that is good again, like that has substance in a real way, then I'm gonna be like, okay, like this was worth it. I'm glad they took the time to do this.
Yeah.
Because I do not think that while I think that Kiryu is going to play a big part in the story, I do not think you're going to be playing as Kiryu in this next game. Sure. It is going to be Ichiban helping Kiryu take down the Daidoji, and the Yakuza are going to be involved in some way, because they always are.
Even though they're disbanded and don't exist officially anymore.
Yeah, I mean, like, look at Yakuza 4, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, look, man, like, I think, not even my hang-up, like, I just, as much sense as that makes, if you're thinking in terms of direct continuity, I just don't know how actually sacred that is to, like, this franchise, and I would not be surprised to see 9 start, not, like, ignoring what's happened before it, but, like, fresh new plotline direction, and some of the things that you're concerned about are just like, oh yeah, that got resolved in the past 5 years, whatever. Anyways.
I would be furious. I'd be furious. Because, like,
I just wouldn't be shocked, is all I'm saying. Like, I don't know if I would, depending on how it's handled, if they did that, I'm willing to just see where the boat goes. Like, I'm just here for the ride. But, like, I do not have expectations for where this series is going in that respect, because I just, like, continuity like that has never been important before, and maybe it is now under Yokoyama, but, like...
But half of this game was sunsetting again Kiryu.
Yep.
And you're just going to tell me that they're going to be like, oh, we're not actually doing... You know, they're basically, like, taking that back? They can't do that.
I'm not saying that they wouldn't address it or talk about it at all. I'm just saying that's not necessarily going to be, like, the plot focus of 9, and that's what the whole story arc's going to be, and that's where the result... I'm saying they could literally start 9 and be like, oh yeah, that's how the rest of that stuff played off. Kiryu's on a beach somewhere. Anyways, like, I legitimately think they could pull something like that, because I don't think this series has ever really cared that hard about continuity in that sense. It's always backward. There's never a long-term plan forward like that. It's always, hey, here's the new plot line, and we're going to find ways to tie it back into some older ones, and we're going to have those connections and cool call-outs of, like, hey, remember this guy from many games ago? He's back because this, you know, Kashiwagi's running a bar. But, like, it's just, I don't think the series has that history, at least. It could change. Well, it might be different moving forward.
I would argue that Yakuza 2 is a direct sequel to Yakuza 1.
Yes,
and I would argue that Yakuza 4 is a follow-up to Yakuza 1. Like, literally, they explain how Nishikiyama blowing up the money at the end of the first game,
but the point
fucked up the police's plans.
Yes, but again, that's pointing back, not pointing forward.
But that's like a massive... That was like the major plot point.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying, is that they make those connections after the fact with what new plot they've decided. It's never a matter of we need to finish up this and no, like 4 was not started because they were like, oh, we need to explain
Okay,
the money thing in 1.
I understand what you're saying about 4.
Yeah.
I still think that 1 and 2 are like pretty tied together. Like, yes, you don't realize it until like that plot twist at the like that's a plot twist I will never speak out loud on, like, where someone that has not played that game can know, because it is one of the greatest narrative plot twists I've experienced in a video game. But when that was when it was just like, oh my god, it's all tied together. It's all a sequel. Like, it's all, you know what I mean? Like, it goes hand in hand with the first game. Like, I do think that those two games do go hand in hand, but like, mostly, yes, you're correct. It's more like, you know, oh, Kiryu is watching these orphans for, like, you know, for 3 games.
What pulls him back in this time, you know?
Yeah, exactly. I
How
agree
did Daigo
with,
mess up again?
I agree with you there.
Yeah.
But Kiryu is just one of the most significant video game characters of all time.
Yeah.
That, like, I can't imagine. It would just be so disrespectful. I don't think I would ever see a studio be so disrespectful to their flagship character like that ever.
And again,
like,
I'm not saying they ignore him or his plot line. I'm just saying I'm not convinced that the plot of 9 has to be Ichiban and Kiryu like team up and take down the Daidoji or something. I just don't think that's a guarantee. Like, I think there's lots of ways they could continue and pay respect to Kiryu as a character and have that just literally fall to the wayside. Like, have that plot line just not be the emphasis.
I mean, I guess if he's just like literally like retires and it's just like not doing anything, but he exists in that world and like he may show up in some scenes, then yes, I can get that. But also, like, I'm saying this stuff based off of the rules that y'all introduced into this series, where it's like, yo, the Daidoji was like, we're not going to have any problems if Kiryu Kazuma is dead. But now he's not. So y'all are just going to say, like, oh, the Daidoji don't care. Daidoji doesn't care that Kiryu is holding,
you know, they're irrelevant by this point or something.
Government
Years
secrets.
pass, major leaders pass away. It just, things happen. Time change.
Oh, that's such a cop-out, though. That's such bullshit. No,
but it's not outside the window of things they've done before. Like, every game is a fresh start plot-wise, and while they will always have great callbacks to past ones, I just don't think continuity in that sense is like a sacred thing.
Everything you're saying, well, except for that last part, is true. But it's bullshit. It's bullshit too. It's both things. It could be both things.
I do want to walk back a little bit. I think this is all very interesting as far as what the future of like the next main line is. But I do also want to talk about the bigger picture of RGG as a series.
Yeah.
Because again, like, they're supposed to be yearly. So if we were to think about what's ahead for the next 3 years, let's even assume it's only one game a year. Sometimes we've gotten double. That happened last year with Ishin and wait, was it last year or was that? No, last year was God, my time is all thrown off. Last year was Infinite Wealth, and the year before that was Ishin with Man Who Erased His Name.
Yeah.
Like, if we're assuming one game a year, like, what are we expecting to see in the next 3 years, right? Like, I don't think an Ichiban game is immediate on the horizon. Maybe the last game of that, like, 3, but
man, I think we're gonna get Virtua. I think we're gonna get Virtua Fighter first.
Sure,
that's gonna be the first game that we get. We've already seen gameplay.
Yeah,
like
right, but we're not counting that towards like the RGG yearly release schedule, right?
Well, it's an RGG game.
Yeah, but I mean, I think they weren't saying they want to have yearly games. They were saying they want Like a Dragon to be a yearly series.
I don't think that's gonna happen.
I mean, okay, look, so who knows? Also, by the way, I realized later, you forgot one other franchise they work on and even have a recent release in. Super Monkey Ball. That's also RGG.
Are they the lead developer for that?
Yeah, that's their IP. That's why Kiryu's in some of them. That's also why they're animals in some of the Crane games is I believe he's referenced in some of them.
I thought that was just because of Sega.
Yeah, no,
It's not.
it is an RGG thing. Like there's this whole funny joke about like Nagoshi working on Super Monkey Go Ball exclusively, and then how his style changed once he became focused on Like a Dragon. It's great. Anyways,
Huh. Interesting.
but
Okay.
just me spitballing here. Like so, obviously, like we said,
Okay.
Judgment could always potentially get a
So
sequel.
if yeah, so it in the hypothetical that like we should expect a new Yakuza game or Like a Dragon slash Judgment game,
Sure,
uh, in the next once a year
once a
every
year.
year.
Yeah,
I think the next game's Kiwami 3.
yeah, I'm inclined to agree. I think Kiwami 3 makes a lot of sense. If that's not the game after the next game, like if they've been really secretly, working away at something like Judgment 3, or I have a really kind of like out of nowhere one a bit. And we talked about this a little bit back at Anime Expo, but I don't remember how much you remember this. What are your thoughts on the idea of something like a 0-2?
Um, it would be weird. It'd be
I
weird
don't
going
think it's
like
that outlandish though. Let me walk back where my logic is coming from this. Um, Obviously, timeline wise, Kiryu is no longer like able to be the main. We don't know what it
sure.
really means in the long term. But as you said yourself, Kiryu is a central thing of RGG. As much as I love Ichiban, Kiryu is the face of that franchise. Like you can't fight that.
Yeah.
Um, and so just because there aren't new up-to-date modern timelines where he stars, I don't think that rules out other games playing with going back in time. And I think the thing that really makes this interesting and got me thinking about it more, I can't remember his name off the top of my head right now. Ichiban's voice actor. Do you remember the name off the top
Uh,
of your head?
um, fuck. I know. It's on
Oh,
top
okay,
of my head.
Nakaya. Yeah, Kazuhiro
Nakaya.
Nakaya.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yep,
So
yep, yep.
Nakaya not only voices Ichiban, but also voices Nishiki, your personal favorite.
Yes,
And
yes.
during Anime Expo, when they were doing an RGG event, he got a lot of questions about Nishiki that I'm kind of surprised they fielded because, it was all through like, getting okays for what questions could be answered, that kind of thing. And there was there was a little energy of like, oh, if I ever got to do Nishiki again, or if there was ever like a time where we could show, how he and Ichiban are kind of more alike than people realize, blah, blah, blah. There were so many like just soft talks about how Ichiban and Nishiki are relatable characters that there's this part of
Hmm.
my brain that refuses to let go of the concept of either like do we get a game where it's more of Nishiki and Kiryu's relationship built up between 0 and 1, or do we do some off the wall crazy stuff where it's like let's play as Nishiki while Kiryu's in prison? Like
I
what?
was about to say, like, just like literally the rise of Nishiki. That would be so cool, dude. That would
Yeah,
be really cool.
like I can't like I
And it
just like
makes sense because, like, I mean, it's not like that they're in bad ties with Kuroda, of course, but like the voice actor for Nishiki, like, he is Ichiban too. So it's just like, hey, let's make a game as Nishiki and like make it so that you are like building your, kind of building your empire type thing. That'd be
yeah.
pretty cool.
And like they like give a little more depth to that fall where like because like I mean like I think they do a good job within the time span of what one can do, but it also is definitely like meek little Nishiki suddenly turns into like the Bamfist villain out of nowhere,
The
but like
baddest motherfucker. The
yeah,
biggest drip, the biggest aura I've ever seen on a Yakuza character.
I know you love Nishiki.
Sojima's close. Sojima's close. Or wait, no, not who's the bad guy in 2?
In two,
Was it Sojima? Yeah.
you're thinking of why is my brain blanking on it now? The Gold Dragon.
Yes.
Huh?
That guy
Oh,
had
Ryuji. Yeah, Goda. Ryuji Goda.
Goda. Yeah, Goda he had that drip too.
No, I do
He,
like I Kiwami 2 is not my favorite, but I love Ryuji as a villain in the rival sense. Like I think he and Kiryu was just such a fun like dynamic. Um but yeah,
yes.
man, like I think about like weird directions they could go for more games that don't necessarily have to be like guidance side game or next judgment. Like what's like the kind of weird direction we could take? And I just think about it sometimes, and especially because again, Nakaya's around, they're working with him regularly. Like, is there room for a Nishiki focused thing? Whether as a major supporting character or as the lead, even.
Like it's one of those things like for me, what I think that's super cool And would I be into it? Yes.
I mean, yeah, you would be hyped
But
for sure.
but another part of me is just like, spoilers. Dude's dead, dog. Like I don't
Well,
like
but like that has
I just don't.
other past stuff. Like,
I know that it can work. It can work when you it can work where a character has like is dead currently and you get like a backstory thing and you're like it can make that stuff retroactively more impactful. I don't know. I just don't see it.
yeah,
I don't see it.
and I know I'm reaching here. This is not me being like, oh, I'm calling it now. Like this is the next game.
Yeah.
But I'm just thinking of like if they're trying to go yearly and they're trying to fill the schedule out, it's like okay, maybe another Judgment if that series is still going because we don't know. Maybe
Mhm.
Project Century counts as one of them. I don't know. We're gonna find that out eventually. And so it's like, what do we have left? Remasters, like another, or well, remakes with like Kiwami 3 is a probable eventually, somewhere in there. Maybe other Gaiden titles where we do other side games as different characters that aren't always going to be Ichiban or Kiryu. Or do we get a little weird with it? I don't know. Like I'm just thinking of how do you fill that schedule out and what out of pocket stuff could they just do?
Yeah, I'm really like I think Kiwami 3 is definitely going to happen.
Yes, that's an eventuality.
And I eventually 3 through 5 are all going to get remade.
Probably. Yeah.
Um
Get them
but
all Dragon Engine or whatever they're doing. Yeah.
ideally, well they're on Unreal now.
Did they go back fully to Unreal? I thought wasn't
Yeah, they went to Unreal. They went to Unreal in Infinite Wealth.
I'm gonna double check that because I don't.
Yeah.
No, that's Dragon Engine. Ninth mainline sequel. What? Da, da, da.
Wait. So was Like a Dragon, Yakuza Like a Dragon, Yui, and then Infinite Wealth was Back to Dragon?
I know Ishin was UE because it was a remake of it was remastering
Yeah.
a PS3 game. Um, or was it a PS4 title too? I forget. We never got the original release in the US. Um, I'm fairly certain, like Man Who Raised His Name, I'm not confident, so I'm not going to fight on that. But I'm pretty sure Infinite Wealth is Dragon Engine.
Oh yeah, you're right. Huh. I swear I thought it was Unreal Engine 4
No,
or 5.
Ishin was moved over to UE for sure. And maybe that's what it was, where that was the last like big game before, and that was in your head. I don't
Interesting.
know.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, it's been Dragon outside of Ishin, it's been Dragon Engine since Yakuza 6. So, um cool. Uh where were we going with that again?
We were just talking about like what like potential games where like we were kind of
Yeah,
fixating on the fact that Kiwami 3 and as you were saying like 4 and 5 probably as well are all going to get like remakes at some point to make them fall a little more in line with like the visual and like feeling of playing the Dragon Engine games and like all the games since.
I think we're gonna get Kwami 3, and then I think we will get one weird game because like no one expected that. Like
Yeah.
no one expected this game, but also like when you think about RGG and how they make games and how they reuse assets, like oh, this makes total sense that they're doing something like this where they're using the Hawaii map again.
Yeah.
Uh,
But no one was like, even if you called a Majima game happening eventually, no one called Majima living a pirate life. Like that,
in Hawaii,
that's
yeah,
very out of left field.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it even
Um,
leaked a little bit before reveal, and a lot of people were like, no, that doesn't make sense. Why would that be the next? And then and then we see the reveal.
yeah, and then I think Project Century. Well, here's the thing. I think Project. Well, if we're not okay. So if we're not see, I get what you meant now with your first question of like,
Yes.
you consider a Project Century RGG.
Because how does that
Uh,
impact the release schedule? Yeah.
yes.
Not just in
So
terms of like
now
workload,
that
but
I'm
like
getting more of the context of what you're asking about, yes, I do think it is. It is, and I think that we're gonna get both those games next year. I think we're gonna get Kwami 3 and Project Century next year. Virtual Fighter will probably get next year as well, but we're not considering that the
that's a
same
full
thing.
release here,
So,
man. Yeah.
so who knows how that's really? I feel like Virtual Fighter is just like this weird gray area that we're not really sure about. And then the following year, I would hope is a Judgment 3. That's
Want to
what I
believe?
would really hope.
Give me more
If
Yagami.
not, it's going to be something left field that we don't expect.
Yeah.
Um, and then after that, it'll be Yakuza 9. I
So
think
they,
we get Yakuza. I
I
think we
lost
get
track of
Yakuza
what years we're
9.
saying. So is that 28,
Yakuza
29?
9 would be 28. 28.
Yeah, I'd buy that.
Which is honestly wait. Like I know that in general games take so much longer to make, but like
Yeah, even with
damn,
RGG reusing assets, like there's still a lot.
yeah,
That's a lot of games.
4 years is just like, oh, that's so long, dude. That's so
Yeah.
long.
And the scale of the Ichiban games are just so much bigger than all the others. Like, I mean, you just look at how much is an Infinite Wealth compared to, Man Who Erased His Name, or even the Judgment games, even the Kiryu like mainline titles. Like, the Ichiban games are big. There's a lot.
Yeah. And it makes me also think about like Trails because like now we're one game away from or like catching up with Japan, and then like the next game hasn't even been like properly announced yet. So it's just like we're starting to really catch up to that series in a way where it's like, how often are we gonna get a new Falcom game? That isn't East 10 Proud Nordics bullshit, whatever that would.
Proud
Anyway,
Nordics, yeah.
yeah, no, I know it's Proud Nordics, but I just hate that it exists. It's like,
Yeah.
nah, this is
That
dumb.
they're pulling an Atlas Persona re-release, whatever,
Yeah,
SMT re-release.
I I'm telling you right now, if Metaphor has a re-release, like whenever, like I'm not playing that re-release. Like I'm just not. I'm just not. Like I like Metaphor a lot. I'm not like I didn't love it as much as I love. It was my game of the year. It was my game of the year. Uh, but I don't love it as much as Persona, and like I just don't see one. I just don't see what they can really add to make that game more impactful. But granted, Persona 5 Royal, definitely proved me wrong on that side of things too.
They've
So
found a way multiple times so far, between
yeah,
multiple SBC and Persona games. So
I just hate that they can't like just make it a separate thing that they instead of re-implementing it into their story. If you're going to do that, then just wait until that version of the game is done.
or just make it like a DLC upgrade, right? Like, I mean, that was even kind of like
Yeah.
Reload, thankfully. I mean, given it's a remake, so we already knew the scope of that content, but like Reload at least was like, okay, we're doing DLC. We're not going to re-release this, as far as we know. Um, yeah, I don't know. I hope Atlas calms that down, and this is still relevant because it's Sega.
Yeah.
They're all one company nowadays. Um, yeah, I don't know. That's a whole other, like we could talk quite a bit about that trend for another topic of the show,
Yeah.
certainly.
I still love RGG. I'm super excited for Project Century. Like that was probably my favorite announcement from the Game Awards that
Really?
night. I mean, I'd have to like relook at a list,
Sure.
but
No,
it
it's a
was
good one. It's a
definitely
good one. Like I feel like
no, it's
Okami like
definitely
stole a
up
lot of
there.
limelight for a lot of people. Onimusha
Oh, I
coming
haven't
back.
played Okami 1, so I wouldn't. I mean, like, I'm excited that that game exists for people. Like, I'm sure that people are really happy about that game, and I'm happy for them. But I just haven't played it.
Sure.
I'm hoping that I can get it on Steam and like get an arachnophobia mod to play that because I know that
Mhm.
there's spiders in that game.
Yeah, even
Um,
stylized, it's going to be a bit too much. Yeah.
yeah, so uh, I'm excited for Okami 2 in that sense, but
Yeah.
yeah,
For me, like going back to RGG and just thoughts about the future, like it's definitely, I feel like I picked such a weird time to get into the series because like I'm relatively a late convert. I got into it at Like a Dragon. And what makes that timing so
same.
weird is that like I got into it right as there was a change in leadership. So it's like I caught up on all these games that were Nagoshi, and then it was like, oh, by the way, he's gone now. And not that I have not enjoyed the games since, but based on trends in those games, while I like them overall, I just have questions, and I'm wondering where this is all going to go. And not to say that all the Nagoshi games are perfect. There are certainly some flaws to some older ones, but there's a core there that I think was consistent that I don't feel as much lately, and I'm just curious what that means for moving ahead.
Yeah, I can totally see that, and
And that's even it with Judgment 3, right? Like if we get a Judgment 3, that'll also be the first one post Nagoshi. Like Lost Judgment was his last game.
yeah, and
So
And here's what I'll say about Judgment in general: is that I don't think there will be a better game than Judgment One. Even if like Negotiate hypothetically was still here,
Yeah.
or like at RGG, I don't think there would be a better game than Judgment One, because like the case was so like directly tied to Yagami's backstory
Yes.
in a way that like
Like
you can only really do that once, right?
absolutely. Well, kind of like with Ichiban, right? Like they found a way to make it relevant with like finding his mom, but like the way everything ties together in Seven specifically is like that's lightning in a bottle. You can't really recreate with the same character.
Yeah. And Lost Judgment, while I really really liked it, um the Judgment series is basically Sherlock Holmes. It's just a bunch of Sherlock Holmes type cases.
Sure.
Lost Judgment was uh Sherlock versus Moriarty, more or less.
Yep.
And so like I just want another Judgment case with Yagami and the crew, Kaito
Yep.
and the crew. Like that's all I want from Judgment. Is like, hey, give me a solid mystery, whatever it may be, and let me explore Kamurocho, maybe run into like some like a dragon characters along the way, beat up some baddies and solve a case. And like that's all I want from Judgment. And that's yeah, it's just really upsetting how the whole lead actor
All that played
Yagami
out. Yeah.
person, because you know that they want to incorporate Judgment because they've been doing it, right? But it's not Yagami because they can't
Yeah.
use him,
Well,
and
and
it's
that's
so
yeah. And even
frustrating.
if they could, I'm sure it costs more than Kaito's likeness or whatever. Like it's definitely a more expensive ask. I think using him more often. That was actually really
Yeah,
funny. One of the there's a Like a Dragon cameo in Lost Judgment, and it's a non-speaking role because they didn't bring back the voice actor, and it's just like him in the background doing something, and it's like, cool, we got a Like a Dragon cameo, love it. And it's just him like cooking over a stove in the background.
yeah.
Um, yeah, no, I would love a Judgment 3. I like honestly anyone who I mean I'm assuming if you've listened this far, you enjoy Like a Dragon as a franchise. If for some reason you have not played the Judgment games yet, please do. Like Judgment 1 is just peak. Like it is again my
It
trio.
really,
Like
it really is.
yeah.
I think I brought this up on this podcast already, where like it was 2021 was when Judgment came out, or 2020.
That was when the PS5 update or whatever
It was
happened.
2019, because it was the year of Sekiro, where we were all like talking about game of the year, and I played every game. There were like 10 games nominated. Every game except for Judgment I played. And then Judgment ends up winning game of the year. And the reason why I didn't play it is because like no one was really talking about it outside of like one or two other people on staff.
Yeah.
And I felt so blindsided. I was so mad because I felt so blindsided by it.
Mhm.
And then I finally played it and I'm like, yo, y'all were cooking.
It is
It probably wasn't my game of the year still for that year, but I'm not mad about it. Like that game was incredible.
yes.
Really, really great story.
Yeah, and excellent gameplay to match it.
Yeah.
Look, I enjoy a lot of the older Kiryu ones, but like even in the ones that I like the gameplay in more, like Zero and Kiwami 1, like they're not great. Like they're not like the
No.
best action games out there.
They're
There's a lot of other like it's like
no.
solid repetitive action that works. Judgment's combat is fantastic. Like
Yeah.
there is so much cool combo stuff you can do if you take the time to actually have system mastery in it, and you don't need to. Like there certainly are those like shortcuts you can take to just get through most matches, but like it's so good. The combat in that game is phenomenal. It is the best action in all of like the RGG stuff. Like even looking with even the snippet I played of like it's what would you
I
put
don't know
above it?
if I really liked 6. I thought I liked 6 a lot.
I disagree, but I'm not sure if my memory is fresh on both enough to like argue that eloquently.
I mean, here's the thing. I think Man Who Races
6 was the
name.
first Dragon Engine game, and like that was pretty rough.
No, go back to it. It plays really well.
I remember feeling like it was pretty rough. Like it showed it was the first game on a new engine.
I had a good time with it. I had a really good
Well, I
time
had a
with
good
it.
time with it too, but I'm just saying, like I'm surprised. I don't know. I'll have to revisit because at the time when I was working through the series, because I played Judgment first. I played Judgment before I worked through the Kiryu games, and so maybe that's nostalgia for Judgment happening
That
there.
that that
But
that could
like,
be the well, because I also played Judgment one. I actually played, so I went the same way. I went Like a Dragon, Judgment, Lost Judgment, and then I played 4 through 6. But Manu, who erased his name, is like, it was fine for me. Like, yeah, it was a return to the brawl, but I was like, like it didn't really do a whole lot for me. So
I
like, but outside of that, because it is like the most recent with the brawl combat outside of Pirate, um, I only the only 3 Yakuza games that I think are actually like fun to play, like combat wise, with like the brawl mechanics is Kiwami 2, 4, for some reason. I don't know, but 4 really clicked with me, and 6. Like those are the only 3 that I really liked. And like I know that Kiwami 2 came after Yakuza 6,
yes.
but there's a specific thing, and it's been a minute for me too, but there's a specific like mechanic that Kiryu has in Yakuza 6. And I think that is the reason why I really liked it. I think it made it found like the right balance of like being able to use heat actions like naturally through combat that
Mhm.
wasn't in Kiwami 2, even though I do really like, I think Kiwami 2 is also really fun to play. I might have to go back to it myself just to check this out, but I remember 6, I was like, because I knew that there was the engine jump after 5.
Oh yeah.
I was like, okay, let's
That's
see
the
how
thing, too.
6
You're
plays.
coming from 3, 4, and 5 PS3 remasters, and then it's like here's Dragon Engine suddenly, and it's a good leap. It's the reverse of what
Yeah.
happens when you go from Kiwami 2 to 3, which is always a
Yeah.
fun momentum
But
break.
I was just like, yo, this is really fun. I'm having a lot of, like an actual, like really fun time beating up people, and like it feels good. And yeah, I just didn't, I don't know what it was about 6, but I really liked 6.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, I enjoyed 6 too, but I feel like my recollection of it, at least playing through the series, is that like there's a clear evolution through line from like 6 turning into Kiwami 2 turning into Judgment. And I really love Judgment. I feel like
Well,
Lost
I mean,
Judgment, there were things about Lost Judgment that I think bothered me a little bit compared to Judgment, so I ended up liking it a little more net, but there was some really cool stuff in it gameplay wise still. The third fighting style I adore. But Judgment for me has always been like if I just want raw like gameplay combat, like combat gameplay, that's the one for me.
yeah, I would say like out of the RGG games entirely, I would choose like one of the Judgment games. But I'm just saying like for the on the Like a Dragon like brawl side, like probably 6. But I would have to kind of return to it. I'm just saying that like I'm not crazy about 0 or Kiwami 1. That's
Right.
all I'm trying to say.
Yeah, no, you have voiced this to me before, and I've been like, okay, I'm not gonna fight you on it, but all right.
I just don't think they're fun to play. I just don't. I
Why
don't
are
know.
they? I'm not gonna say they're like the best action games out there. Don't get me wrong. Like as someone who really enjoys like Devil May Cry and a lot of the things that allow for some like fancier combo stuff. Like I don't think those ones are like peak or anything. But saying they're not fun is really weird to me. Like,
All I'll say is, maybe you'll disagree with me. All I'll say is that if you're still listening to this podcast
I love,
and
by
you
the
have
way, that
not,
we said this was going to be a short one, and we are at hour 2 right now.
okay, if you're listening to this podcast and you have not played any Yakuza games, in my opinion, I think that, and it's a weird order of how it works, but I think 0, Kiwami 1, 3 through 5, play them all on easy difficulty. You'll have much more fun that way.
I definitely agree for 3, especially the remaster version, because there's some very annoying things they did with the enemy AI in that version. Um, and then track down a PS3 copy of Dead Souls that is extremely expensive, and let me know how it is, because I
Do you
still
think that's going to get remade?
probably not. I think I would kind of dig it. Like I kind of want that to happen, but I don't. I don't see that happening. I wouldn't be opposed. I don't
But
see it happen.
did you expect Ishin to get remade?
That surprises me less.
Okay. Alrighty.
Yeah.
Well, everybody, that was the topic of the show. That has been this week's episode of Party Chat. You can find me on socials at Cam Final Mix. You can find Kevin over on socials at Kevin Kenson. Kevin, was there anything else that you wanted to say before we dip out?
I think we're good. I have approximately 75 more Like a Dragon opinions we could drop, but we'll save that for the next one.
Sounds good. Until next time, everybody. Catch you later.
Later.